Hello everyone, welcome to my channel Chronica Criminal, where I talk about real cases. In today's case we will see how overconfidence transforms an afternoon of games into a nightmare that steals a girl's life. My name is Penelope, and before I start I ask you to subscribe. Activate the bell so that YouTube warns you every time I download content, and if you like what I share I ask you to help me by giving a like. Don't forget to leave me your thoughts on the case in the comments. This beautiful girl, Sandra Cantu, was born on March 8, 2001 in Tracy, a small town in the U.S. state of California. Sandra was an ordinary child, went to school, and had friends she liked to play with. He lived with his mother, grandparents, and 3 big brothers in the Orchard Estates mobile home park. In that place it was very normal for boys and girls after going to school to go knocking from door to door looking for their friends to go out and play. About 100 people lived there. It was a very gated community, where all the neighbors knew each other and trusted each other, and there were no problems. But even in the safest place, regrettable situations can occur. This is how on March 27, 2009, 8-year-old Sandra Cantu went after school to a friend's house to play as she used to. He returned home at 3:30 p.m., but warned that he was going back to play at another little friend's house. Maria, Sandra's mother, begins to worry because it was time for dinner and Sandra had not arrived. She starts calling her daughter's friend's house to ask if she was playing there. But no one had seen her. Then he decides to go out and look for her and did not find her. He realized that something was wrong. After 8 p.m. Maria calls the police to give notice of the disappearance of her daughter Sandra Cantu. They began the search throughout the complex of houses without any results. No one had seen her. So far they only had the images from a security camera that Sandra's grandfather had installed on the door of the house. In the recording you can see at 4 p.m., when the girl crosses the street in front of her house wearing a Hello Kitty t-shirt and black pants. That was the last thing that was known about her. They also called the FBI to cooperate with the case. Well, it is known that the first hours of the disappearance of a person are key to be able to find them, even more so in the case of a girl. On the weekend of the 28th and 29th, Sandra was searched non-stop, with dogs, equestrian teams, all-terrain vehicles, and even a helicopter brought in to help with the search. They offered a $22,000 reward for any information that had to do with the case and helped find Sandra's whereabouts. The investigation was initiated, and in addition to questioning sex offenders in the area, 2 other men were also questioned. One was Sandra's father, Daniel Cantu, who had not been visiting her for more than a year and who also had conflicts with Sandra's mother because he was not giving her the money to support the girl. However, after questioning him, he was ruled out as a suspect because at the time of Sandra's disappearance, he was not in Tracy. And the other was a man who had kissed Sandra on the lips 2 years ago when she was just 6 years old, but was also ruled out after questioning him because they determined that he had nothing to do with the girl's disappearance. As Sandra was a very friendly child, got along well with all the neighbors and went to their houses to play with their children, that made everyone possible suspects. Investigators had no solid information so far. There were no witnesses, no one had seen her, no one knew anything. Sandra had disappeared without a trace. Everything changes when a neighbor, Melissa Huckabee, the mother of Sandra's best friend, sends a text message to Maria, Sandra's mother, telling her that she had had a suitcase stolen the same day the girl had disappeared and that she was not sure if this would help in any way in the case, but that in the same way I wanted to tell him to inform the police. This was not given much attention because they did not believe that the theft of a suitcase could be related to Sandra's disappearance. At this point, it began to be thought that possibly the person responsible for Sandra's disappearance was not from the neighborhood, but rather someone from outside. Sandra's photo began circulating in the media, which is how information about the girl's disappearance was made public. During the search, they found a t-shirt very similar to the one Sandra was wearing the day she disappeared. However, the family discarded it because it was a larger size than the one Sandra wore. One night, Melissa goes with the police screaming that she had found something. It was a note written with a very ugly letter and many spelling errors. In the note you could read that Sandra was in a suitcase and that she had been thrown into the water. It also said the place where the suitcase had been thrown. This note was signed by an anonymous witness. They went to the place and tried by all means to find the suitcase, but the search became impossible because the water was very contaminated and prevented the work of tracing. The investigation then focused on the analysis of the note, resulting in the ugly letter and spelling errors having been made on purpose in order to confuse the investigators, and that they could not recognize the letter of the person who had written it. This is how the police begin to tie up ropes and realize that Melissa was the same neighbor who had sent a text message to Sandra's mother to tell her that a suitcase had been stolen just the same day the girl had disappeared. And then he is the one who precisely delivers the note to the police with the information of where Sandra's body was supposedly located. Melissa, 28, was the mother of Sandra's best friend. On Sundays she taught catechism at church, so she didn't have the profile of the suspect they were looking for, as they weren't even thinking she might be a woman. That's how the police begin to analyze absolutely everything that had to do with Melissa. Upon checking Melissa's room, they found a notebook with the same type of note paper that Melissa had supposedly found, and curiously the notebook was missing a sheet. There was no longer any doubt that Melissa had written that note. Now the question was, why? On April 6, 2009, 11 days after Sandra's disappearance, a suitcase with a body inside was found during routine maintenance drainage from an irrigation pond. After analyzing the body, it was confirmed that it was indeed the girl Sandra Cantu. The autopsy revealed the atrocity of which Sandra was a victim. She was brutally beaten and sexually abused with an object before being suffocated. Toxicological studies showed that she had been drugged with a very powerful sedative. So it becomes a murder investigation case where the main suspect was Melissa. All the evidence pointed to her. The information in the note was real, it had been written by Melissa. The description of the suitcase that Melissa was stolen matched the suitcase where Sandra's body was found, so everything pointed to her. When they decide to perform the polygraph test, they go to get her, and they find out that she was in the hospital because she had attempted suicide. After this, they begin to inquire with her family and discover that Melissa had a history of mental health problems. He suffered from borderline personality disorder, bipolar disorder, and schizophrenia. They also discover that a few months ago, a neighbor accused her of having taken her daughter without permission. The details of what happened are not really specified, suggesting that the girl was taken somewhere without notifying her parents, or that she was removed from school without authorization. The truth is that at the time of returning her to her parents, the girl acted strangely, as if she were under the influence of some drug. Noticing the state the girl was in, the mother takes her to the hospital to be examined to see what was wrong with her. In blood tests, they discover that he had a powerful sedative. The same sedative they happened to find on Sandra's body. At that time, Melissa denied absolutely everything and did not go from there. But this time there was a lot of evidence against him. Investigators continued to collect more and more testimony. Among those testimonies was that of a couple who claimed to have seen Melissa the same day that Sandra disappeared through the area where they found the suitcase. However, the police needed physical evidence, something more concrete, in order to catch her. So they decide to go to the church where Melissa every Sunday gave catechism classes, and in the kitchen of that place they found a roller with a stain of blood and the handle bent. By analyzing this roller, they are able to determine that the test matched Sandra's DNA. This is how on April 10, 2009, Melissa Huckabee was arrested for the murder of Sandra Cantu, being sentenced to life in prison without parole. During the sentencing, Melissa said that she didn't know why she had done it, that it would be a question she was going to ask for the rest of her life. This horrific case leads us to think about the vulnerability of children and the responsibility of their parents to the freedoms they are allowed at such a young age. And good friends, I hope that the case I brought you today has been to your liking. Again, I ask you to subscribe to my channel, to activate the bell, and give it to me if it is the case. Leave me your opinions in the comments, or tell me if you want me to bring you a particular case.